Hello, guys and girls, and welcome to today's lesson. As you can see here on the screen, the topic that we're going to be talking about today is newsroom roles. And before I dive in and start discussing this in detail, I want us to pause for just a second. You are going to be taking some notes today. So right now, go ahead and open up your journalism notebook to your next blank page and label this part of your notes with what you see right here on the screen, which is newsroom roles. And once you've done that, you can continue on with the video. By the time that you get done with these notes today, I'm hoping that you're able to answer the question that you see on the screen, which is, who does what in a school newspaper? And let's talk about why it's going to be important for you to be able to answer that question. I want you guys to think back to the very first week of school when I gave you a syllabus for this class. If you remember, it was a yellow piece of paper and it gave you an idea of what you could expect from this class this year. And one of the things that I emphasized in the syllabus is that I want our classroom to feel and function like an actual newsroom. And so to accomplish that, we're going to be talking about 6 different jobs in a newsroom today, giving you some context and some ideas of what each job is going to look like. And then tomorrow, you are going to be filling out an application where you apply for one of these jobs. And so, although the notes part today is important because you might possibly have a quiz later this week over these notes, it's also going to be important for you to take some mental notes in the back of your mind, especially on the jobs that sound interesting to you, because you're going to fill out an application and hopefully be assigned one of these jobs in the very near future. The roles that we're going to be focusing on are editor-in-chief, section editor, reporter, photographer, designer, which is going to be called our layout editor, and our copy editor. I'm not going to go into too much detail on any of these just yet, but as we move forward through the notes today, these are the 6 roles that we're really going to be focusing on. So let's talk about our editor-in-chief first. You could think about the editor-in-chief as the boss of our paper. This is going to be the leader. This is going to be the person who's in charge. I intend to split this job into 2 parts. And so when we complete the application process tomorrow and I have time to review those, I'm thinking I'm probably going to choose 2 of you to share the position of editor-in-chief because it's a big job. As the editor-in-chief or editors-in-chief, you will be deciding what stories actually go in our paper. So our reporters will come up with ideas, but you are going to be the one that has the final say of what actually is going to be published. You are going to work very closely with our editors and our reporters. They actually are going to report to you. So if they ever have any issues, any concerns, you're going to be the person that they come to. And you're going to have some leadership skills and some decision-making skills in order to deal with whatever they might come to you to discuss. You are also going to be responsible for keeping everyone on schedule. So again, we're trying to publish our first edition of our school newspaper by fall break, which is the beginning of October. So you're going to be responsible for making sure everyone is on track so that we can accomplish that goal. I do want you to copy everything that you see on the slide here onto your note-taking sheet. So you should already have a header up at the top. I would maybe skip a line, put editor-in-chief and underline it, and then copy down the definition and the responsibilities of the editor-in-chief. And once you've done that, you can move on. You do not have to copy this slide, but again, remember we're going to be filling out applications tomorrow. And so make a mental note here of these tasks that an editor-in-chief might be responsible for and ask yourself as you're thinking about these, does this sound like something I might like to do? So typical tasks of our editor-in-chief are going to be things like running newsroom meetings and also setting the agenda for those meetings. Again, the editor-in-chief is the boss. They are the one who is in charge. And so if at any point we need to have a class meeting to discuss upcoming deadlines, upcoming stories, you're going to be the one that is leading those meetings and also deciding what needs to be discussed in those meetings. As the editor-in-chief, you are also going to be approving story ideas and deciding what will be published in the next issue of our paper. You're going to be a in between our section editors and our reporters. So the reporters will report to their section editors, and the section editors will come to you, and you have to make sure that they are staying on track. You are also going to be there to help solve any issues that come up. I touched on that earlier, but as an example, maybe a reporter comes to you and they're like, I'm really struggling with this article. I'm not sure if I'm going to meet my deadline. You are going to have to help them problem solve and fix that issue. And then you're also going to be making the final call on what goes on the front page of the paper, the headline, the main story. It will be your decision to make. So again, you don't have to copy this, but be thinking in your head if that sounds like something you might like to do. All right, right underneath our editor-in-chief are our section editors. There will be several of you in this class who are assigned to that role. It's really going to depend on how many different sections we decide to put in our paper, but our section editors are the ones who are going to be responsible for running the different parts of the paper. Like we might have a news section, we might have a sports section, we might have an opinion section. And so our section editors are essentially the leaders of each of those sections. Your responsibilities are going to be to assign stories within your section. So we'll just use sports as an example. Let's say that you are the sports section editor. And you have, let's just say you have 5 reporters who are working with you on the sports section. You will be responsible for telling those 5 reporters what they're going to be writing about. You are also going to be responsible for doing some editing. So when your reporters finish a story, they are going to share it with you, and you're going to tell them things that they need to improve on. It could be things like grammar, spelling, and punctuation, but it could also be things like, hey, this paragraph doesn't really make sense, or you might need to have a stronger lead in this article. Also, you would be responsible for suggesting new story ideas to the people within your section. So go ahead and copy everything that you see on this slide, and when you are ready, you can move on. Again, our typical tasks, you don't have to copy these down, but make mental notes here if this sounds like something you're interested in. The typical tasks of a section editor are assigning stories, doing things like telling someone in your group, hey, you're going to cover the pep rally, you're going to cover the student council meeting, you're going to do the feature on Mr. Patterson. You are the person who's responsible for that. You read and edit the first drafts that your reporters create for your section. You suggest new story ideas, especially if your reporters are having a hard time of coming up with ideas. You're going to work with the photographers to make sure that the pictures that are within your section are all really good photos. And then you report to the editor-in-chief with updates on your section. All right, let's talk about the job of the reporter next. We're not going to spend too much time on this, and this is actually not something that you will be applying for because everyone is going to be a reporter in this class. Everyone's going to be responsible for writing something for our paper. But the definition of the reporter is you are the main writer of the paper. Your responsibilities are to do research on whatever you're writing about, to gather information for whatever you're writing about. You might have to conduct some interviews of different students, teachers, and staff within our building. And then, of course, you're going to be writing articles in the newspaper style that we're going to be talking about later this week. Please make sure you copy everything that you see on this slide, and then you can move on. All right, again, you're all going to be reporters, but your typical task as a reporter are things like brainstorming and pitching story ideas, conducting interviews so that you have quotes for your article, possibly doing some research on background information if that's something that's needed for your story. Writing articles is going to be your main responsibility. And then after you turn in your article to your section editor and they give you feedback, you will be using that feedback to revise and edit your article to make it stronger. All right, let's talk about our photographers. Photographers are going to take photos to make stories stronger. This is another one that we're not necessarily going to be applying for. As the reporter of a specific event, I'm going to be expecting you to take photographs of that event as well. But still, it's good to have an understanding of what the job of a photographer is. Your responsibilities as a photographer are to get pictures at school events, like for example, Maybe you've signed up to cover a pep rally. Obviously, when you go to the pep rally, you need to take pictures. You might be responsible for editing pictures. Maybe you took a picture that was a little bit dark and it needs to be lighter. Maybe you need to crop a picture because you're only focused on one specific person and there's 10 people in the background. You also would be working with reporters to make sure that any pictures that you take match with what they're putting in their article. Please make sure that you copy everything on this slide and then you can move on. Again, guys, you don't have to copy down the typical tasks in your notes, but as a photographer, you would be responsible for attending school events to take pictures. You might also have to take some posed pictures, like for example, maybe we're going to do a feature on new teachers in the building, and you are going to go interview a new teacher and you might have to take a picture of them, right? That's going to be a posed picture. Also, you are going to be responsible for choosing the best photo out of many that are taken. Like if you go to a football game and you're trying to get pictures of different things that happen at the football game, you might take 15, 20, 30 pictures, and obviously we couldn't put all of those in our paper, and so you'd have to choose the best ones. Cropping and editing images to make them stronger, and then working with reporters to match photos to their articles. Our next job in the paper, and this will be another one that you might apply for, is our designer, or we're actually going to call this person our layout editor. The layout editor is the person responsible for making sure that our final published product looks really nice. They make the newspaper look polished. They make sure that it's easy to read. If you are a person who really enjoys like creating things in Canva, or if you have a Google Slides presentation in a class, you're going to be the one that's like making sure it looks super nice. You have nice images on your screen. This is going to be a job that might be a good fit for you. Our designer is going to be making sure that they arrange photos, stories, and headlines on the page, possibly creating some graphics and illustrations to make it look nice, and then making sure that the overall look looks professional. Please make sure that you copy what you see here on the screen, and then you can move on. Typical tasks of our layout editor, aka designer, are placing the articles and headlines and photos onto the page, making sure it looks nice and eye-catching, possibly adjusting fonts or spacing or colors to make sure that everything is easily seen and readable, and double checking to make sure that each page looks balanced and professional. So again, you don't have to write these down, but just make a mental note if that sounds interesting to you. Last but not least is our copy editor. This is another one that you might apply for. The definition of the copy editor: you are the detail checker. If you are a detail-oriented person, you would be a fantastic copy editor. You, after everything is said and done, before everything goes to the editor-in-chief for final sign-off, you're going to be taking a look at all of the articles, double checking to make sure there's no grammar mistakes, there's no spelling mistakes, there's no punctuation mistakes. You might have to do some fact checking, make sure that if we have a photo that has a caption under it and it says that it's a picture of Miss Dangerfield, then it better actually be a picture of Miss Dangerfield. If someone is writing a story about the upcoming 8th grade night for football and they say it's on a certain date, you're the one that's going to have to make sure that it is in fact happening on that date. And then making sure that the articles follow the style that we've talked about or that we're going to be talking about for our newspaper. All right, you do need to copy everything that you see on this slide, and then you can move on. All right, to end things here, our copy editor's tasks are going to be things like proofreading articles for grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Again, fact checking, make sure we have correct names, dates, and places. If there is something that is a little bit confusing in an article or a little bit awkward, you might have to work to reword those things. Making sure that the headlines we choose are catchy, but they are accurate. And ensuring consistency. Again, this comes back down to the details. Like, for example, if someone is writing Mr. MR period, making sure that that's how it appears throughout the entire article. Like, there shouldn't be a MR without a period next to it. So again, it's looking for those little details to make sure that everything is consistent and clean within our paper. Okay, you do not have to copy this, but you are finished with your notes for the day. Be thinking about which one of these roles sounds the most interesting to you, and when you're ready, bring me your notes so I can check you off for the day.